From this chief, ox, front, to one divided frontward and divided therefrom, sharpened, pressed, and repeating this. 2. And from this topmost rule, first possession, inheritance, and top man also like where, that, from this, opened, palm of hand, arm, hand, deed, bent and curved to one tamed and handiwork of them, also like for, surely, indeed, since, look. Behold this, life, breath, breath of life in man, this arm, hand which reveals life, also, like exists, come to pass, happen, this, of this chief, ox, anointed tent peg, hooked to secure as a man on his side, on trail, and desiring this head, person, this topmost rule, first possession, and inheritance, also like treasure, storehouse, treasury, depository, ox of this chief, ox, signed covenant, mark, signature, and identification of people, place, and thing in, and of life, breath, breath of life in man, also like you, and divided from this front, or not divided from this massive, mighty, lifted up sea, blood to get lifted up, also like there, to look, lo, and behold, life, breath of life in man, arm, hand which revealed life, breath also like to exist, come to pass, this anointed tent peg, nail, fixed, added, or otherwise this life, breath, breath of life in man, or not this goal, authority, staff, control, toward protection, this bind, leading and teaching, in and of this family, house, tent floor plan, also like heart, center, intellect, mind, thought, will, ox of this chief, ox, signed covenant, mark, signature and identification of people, place, thing in and of life, breath, breath of life in man, also like you. Look, if, and not to behold life, breath, this breath of life in man, if ever away from this palm of hand, to open, which tames, subdues, and allows, this shield and pierced prop, hated support, this thorn in this hand of this staff to grab, hold on to, established to prevent, and turn from barbs by this mouth, blowing word, spoken command as a sword, also like silver. If ever not an ox of this chief, ox, signed covenant, mark, signature, and identification of people, place, and thing in, of life, breath of life revealed in man, also like you, with an eye to see, experience, watch, and heed, thus to understand cover, and this mighty, lifted up sea, blood or not, chaos, blemish, etc., also like with, among, toward, ox, signed covenant, mark, signature, and identification of people, place, thing in and of life, and breath, and this breath of life revealed in man, also like you. Look, behold life, breath, breath of life in man, this arm, hand, thrust, hand, deed, lo, also like exist, come to pass, if away from this chief, ox, strength, power, family, house, inside this tent floor plan, tent door, hung low, anointed tent peg, to fix, hook to secure. Join things to this Wai-Hua given kingdom of life. Air, perpetuation, also like wandered away, Sheol. Break, if not, yet always, from this palm of hand, open, to tame and allow, this arm, hand, to this deed, to physically observe, also like for, indeed, or not, surely, this, of life, breath and breath of life in man, from this massive, mighty, lifted up sea. Blood, this mark, signed covenant, indicator, and identification of people, place and thing of, and in this given kingdom of life, air, sprouting seed, perpetuation and continuation, also like gift. Behold, life, breath, and breath of life in man, from this arm, this hand, thrust hand, deed, to look at. Behold, life, breath, breath of life in man, anointed tent peg, hook to secure, fix, to add to life, breath, also like she, if ever separated from, outside of, this tent wall, facing this front, divided therefrom, pressed from, sharpened by, and repeating this family, house, tent floor plan, also like to think, plan, account, reckon, esteem, devise, of this family, house, tent floor plan if, not of this palm of hand, to subdue, allow, and this anointed tent peg, divided therefrom, facing frontward, also like equipment, items, things gathered. You may ever gather to this sun in this horizon, by this sun as a day, line condensing into this Father, this given kingdom of life, sprouting seed, air, life, breath, and breath of life in man, also like acquire, buy, possess. If not an ox of this chief, ox, signed covenant, mark, signature, and identification of people, place, thing in, of life, breath, and breath of life revealed in man, also like you, if not of this arm, hand which revealed life, breath, also like exist, come to pass, happen, this, if not of life, breath, breath of life in man as men of his side, desiring and on trail to this tent door hung low, this pathway, by this sun, to this sun on this horizon, in day, in a line, to gather to this Father, also like to justify, declare righteousness, see cover, of man on his side, on this trail, desiring, from this mighty, lifted up sea, blood, if not chaos, blemish, if not connected, to this anointed tent peg, also like substance, bone, body, self-same, as if ever, and only this chief, ox, inside this tent wall, this tent door hung low and pathway for movement, also like one, this chief, an ox, leadership and power, this signed covenant, mark, an identification of people, place and thing, strength, also like self, if ever away from life, breath, this breath of life in man, divided, pressed, sharpened, and repeating this given kingdom of life, sprouting seed, heir to perpetuate as sons, and to continue, of this arm, and hand, and deed, also like to another, to a second, double, if ever, trying away from authority. This staff, goal, control toward this bind, protection, leading and teaching, blowing, word, spoken by mouth as a sword, command, of this Waishua, given kingdom of life, heir, as offspring, offspring of this arm, hand, deed, doing handiwork and physically observing, also like to face, faces, countenance, originally from this chief, ox, hung down, made movement from this mighty lifted up sea, made blood, many, also like men, human, Adam, connected to this anointed tent peg, fixed, added, or not this arm, hand, thrust hand, deed, to look at, and behold, life, breath, and breath of life in man, anointed tent peg, hook to secure, fixed, to add unto life, breath, also, like Waishua, this arm, hand, thrust hand, and deed, to physically observe, can observe those on this pathway in this tent door, can watch whom heeds, to understand those in cover, also like perceive, understand this staff, goal, control toward protection, or not, authority, this bind, leading and teaching in, and of this family's house and tent floor plan, also like heart, center, intellect, mind, thought, will, if those ever not oxen of this chief, ox, signed covenant, mark, signature, and identification of people, place and thing in, of life, breath and breath of life in man, also like you. From this opened, palm of hand, arm, and hand, thrust hand and deed, bent and curved to one tamed handiwork of them, also like for, surely, indeed, this, if not life, breath, and breath of life in man, if ever other than having an eye to see, experience, watch, and heed, to understand cover, authority, this staff, goal, control toward protection, leading, teaching, this bind, also like if ever concerning anything other than against, to ascend, go up, this chief, ox, hung down, made movement from this mighty lifted up sea, made blood, many, also like men, human, Adam, if not this carrying camel, whom walked, caused movement of, and to this family, house, inside this tent floor plan, if not looking at life, breath, and breath of life in man, also like lofty, soar, proud, only this head and person, from this beginning, topmost rule, first possession and inheritance, with this anointed tent peg to hook to secure to, and from this mighty lifted up sea, blood, also like elation, lift up, if not divided from, facing this front, to this sun, sun on this horizon, day, in a line, gathering to this Father, as men on his side, desiring, and on this trail, also, like to test, abhor, if not of, in this mark, signed covenant, identification of people, place and thing, connected this anointed tent peg, chief, ox, family, house and tent floor plan, inside and of, beholding life, breath, also like a stray from, this arm, hand, deed, doing handiwork and physically observing, also like to face or not, countenance, chief, bulwark, tower, to turn to, this arm, or cleared, by, from this arm, hand, thrust, hand, deed, to look at, and behold, life, breath, and this breath of life in man, anointed tent peg, hook to secure, fixed, to add to life, breath, also like Waishua.